Hello and welcome to episode 189 of Controller Club, the friendly face gaming space, a podcast where three friends from three continents share in one love, and that is video games. On today's show, GTA 6 might be going all digital for launch, a Nintendo Direct could be imminent, and we're going to break down the state of online gaming in 2026. But before all that, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Kleinfeld, and alongside me today, as always, are two of my best friends in the whole wide gaming world, as well as a very special guest. First, coming to us from across the pond, it is the digital art daredevil himself, Tom Drew. Tom, how you doing? How are things? What's going on?
I'm doing good. Yeah. I was trying to think of like a funny quip to say at the start of the show, like I usually do. Don't really have much this week. Been playing Highguard. It's about all I got. So I guess we can move on to the other people on this podcast.
Next up, it is journalist extraordinaire, the Australian abroad / the Canadian in training, Lauren Rouse. Lauren, the room, the new place, is coming together. I feel like every time, every episode over the last couple of weeks, we get a little bit more on the walls behind you. What's going on in your life?
Yes, this is a reason people should watch the video version so you can see my artwork slowly being put up. I couldn't put up artwork in my previous apartment, so now I am taking full advantage. So I just put these up literally before we got on.
And last but certainly not least, our very special guest this week, gaming pundit at large, former trends writer at Inverse.com, and one of my personal favorite voices in all the industry, Hayes Madsen. Hayes, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Hey, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. I love what you guys do. And, you know, things could be better for me personally, but I'm hanging in there, finding freelance work again, reaching out and getting those contacts back together. So I'm doing okay.
Well, hopefully we can, as a podcast today, we can raise the vibes a little bit, get you feeling good. It's a Sunday afternoon when we're recording right now, so it's a good time to just relax and talk about some games. Now, Hayes, with every new guest we have on the show, we always like to ask a bit of an icebreaker, and that has become, what is a game to get to know you? What is a game, if you were, as Hayes Madsen, wanted to introduce the audience to you, to your taste, to maybe some of your work, what is a game you would point them to?
Yeah, I actually thought about this a lot. I thought about like my favorite game, but I think the one I'd have to go with is probably The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
Ooh.
Just because it's kind of different and it's kind of weird, and it is very dense, and that's kind of what I really enjoy. Games that have a lot of layers that you can really dig into, a lot of thematic elements. In my writing, like narrative and story and thematic elements and things like that. That's kind of the big focus that I have. So Majora's Mask is my favorite Zelda game, and that's kind of always been like one that I point to as the kind of game that I really enjoy. The other one I thought about was Final Fantasy Tactics, and that kind of is emblematic of everything I do. RPGs, strategy games, very dense stories about religious themes and things like that. So I was a little split between those two, but those are kind of the answers that I have.
As a Tactics fan, how'd you feel about the remaster or remake, the Evil East Chronicles last year? Was that something that was very high up in the Game of the Year discussions in your mind by the
Yeah,
end of 2025?
I was initially hesitant about it because I think Tactics is such like an all-time masterpiece of a game that I didn't know, like, touching it up what it would do. But I honestly came out the other end of that game blown away in pretty much every regard. Like, I genuinely think they made that game better in every way, in terms of accessibility, in terms of gameplay, and even in terms of narrative. Like, I really loved the little conversations they added mid-battle. I thought that added a ton to the story and the characters, and genuinely probably. And that's a weird game because it's like, is it a remaster? Is it a remake? Is it kind of in the middle? But whatever it is in that regard, I think it's one of the better ones.
Well, you add Ben Star to anything, and it's going to make it even better than it once
100%.
was.
Yeah.
We got plenty of show to get into, so let's get into it. The news we choose is back. So, Tom Drew, give us that news jingle.
It's the news we choose. Yeah.
We start with me. Grand Theft Auto 6 might be going all digital at launch. This is coming from Chris Scullion over at VGC.com. Take-Two and Rockstar may hold back the release of the physical version of Grand Theft Auto 6 to avoid spoilers. That's according to Polish site PPE.pl, whose insider Grazdari previously correctly leaked information on the release date of Oblivion Remastered, physical copies, the Switch 2 port of Sonic Racing Crossworld, and the PS5 port of Microsoft Flight Simulator. According to Gresdari, who PPE.pl, there's a lot of abbreviations here, says handles physical game sales in Europe. Take-Two still has no plans for a physical edition of the game, at least at release. While it appears inevitable that the game will get a physical release, the report claims that it may appear on consoles digitally first, with a physical version following later. This could be a few weeks after release or as far back as 2027. Quote, we're hearing more and more that the physical version won't be released simultaneously with the digital version to prevent leaks, end quote, their source claims. Quote, we're getting conflicting reports. Some say the physical version will arrive 3 to 4 weeks after the digital release, while others say it won't happen until early 2027. More information will be available in mid-February, end quote. GTA 6 has already been subject to numerous leaks in recent years. In September 2022, one of the games industry's most high-profile data leaks saw over an hour of GTA 6 development footage published online, giving players their first look at the sequel to one of the best-selling games of all time. So this was one of the big stories of the week that, of course, it's going to be big anytime GTA 6 is announced, but the fact that Rockstar may be foregoing a physical release to avoid spoilers. I want to get your thoughts on this and maybe how this could affect launch. Do we think it's real? Hayes, you're our guest. We'll let you go first here. Do you think that Rockstar is bold enough to do this, to actually make this happen? And do you think it's going to have any effect on the release if it does?
I think there's kind of two sides to this. One, I think, like, if there's any game that could get away with not doing a physical release, it's GTA. Because people are going to buy that game at whatever way they have to buy that game. And Rockstar is bold enough to just not care, I think. But at the same time, like, if you're doing it to avoid leaks, I also feel like if you're Rockstar, you kind of just need to accept that leaks might happen because everyone is going to be trying to leak that game in some regard. So it's weird because I could see them doing it, but also it feels a little irrelevant in the end. But I do think the most likely scenario is, like they said, this kind of like digital release first and then physical copies maybe a few weeks or a few months later. Especially if, obviously we have no idea, but if they have like a Switch 2 version in the works or something, launching that alongside when physical copies come out would make sense. So I do think this will happen in some regard. I just don't know I don't know exactly the way it'll pan out.
I was wondering if Rockstar is so worried about leaks, what does this mean for potential review copies being handed out? I'm sure that like the IGNs of the world and GameSpots and those very, very big outlets will get reviews. But if they're so worried about leaks, I wouldn't be surprised if we have less reviews for GTA 6 than we ever have for a Rockstar game at launch, because they know this thing's going to sell. They don't need the hype of a review cycle behind it. But Lauren, what do you think about this? Do you think that Rockstar's bold enough to pull something like this off?
So what's the concern that people will get their hands on physical copies a few days earlier or something? That's the
I
reason?
think that's it, yeah.
I don't know. I think there's got to be a point where they just have to let it go. Like, we saw a huge leak happen with The Last of Us Part 2, and people kind of just either chose to stay off the internet and play it as they would like to, or they read the spoilers. It's just kind of what happens. So I feel like, release physical copies, don't, like Hayes said, like, people are going to buy it no matter what. I would prefer personally to buy a physical copy because even GTA 5 came with the cool fold-out map and they had some things in the box that I felt were quite cool. But, like, yeah, I don't think this is going to impact it regardless. But I do think from their point of view, like, they need to stop stressing so much about the spoilers because as soon as the game comes out, all the information's going to be out there. So it's just a matter of whether that happens before launch or, the day it comes out.
Tom, do you think this could put a dent in the astronomical sales that this game is going to surely hit when it hits release?
I don't think so. And honestly, like, the reason he's given is leaks, but I honestly think partially it's got to be sales driven as well. I think, like, if you're only giving consumers one avenue to get this game, it like funnels them into that. Like, okay, I guess I have to get the digital version,
which is always more expensive.
Yeah, and that's they maximize the revenue that way. So I think it just makes sense to do it this way, as well, because like with physical, like as a consumer, you have to either go out to the store and buy it or wait for it to get delivered. But if it's digital, you can play the game like as soon as it drops. And I think a lot of people will want to be doing that with this game because it is so anticipated. So again, like yeah, to funnel it into this like one system, I think it just makes sense to me, like that they would take the strategy. I guess my big question is like if the physical release is delayed to 2027. Look, I infamously predicted that GTA 6 would get delayed. If the physical release gets delayed, do I get the point for
That
that?
does not
No.
count. That does not count.
Well, I let the record be shown I tried. But yeah,
I'm
I
also
just think it
interested.
makes sense.
I'm just also interested out of this that they said there'll be more information in mid-February. What's going on in mid-February that we need to know about?
Is that financial call stuff? Is that end of fiscal year? Are we going to get an
Maybe,
investors call? I think that from what I remember, a couple of weeks ago, I saw going around that I think it's middle of February is when their next kind of quarterly earnings call thing would be happening. And I have a feeling if this is part of the plan, that would be something you would have to disclose. Although I don't know, I'm by no means a Wall Street broker. I have no idea how that works.
Yeah, the interesting thing about GTA 6 is it's the kind of game that like they can announce news for this game whenever they want. It doesn't matter what's happening, what's going on in the world. Like they could just drop it on a random Tuesday, and that's what they'll do.
Well, they've proven that time and time again. Like
Yeah.
the Rockstar waits for nobody. They play by their own schedule. It does not matter whether there's a Nintendo Direct, whether there's Summer Games Fest, whether there's the Game Awards. People will show up just because Rockstar has something to say, as little or as big as that thing is.
I'm putting this out there as well. If they're concerned about leaks and they decide to do digital only, to handle the strain of that, they're going to have to allow preloading. Somebody will figure out how to get through that and access the game before. This is Rockstar. Like people are flying drones outside their office. Somebody will figure it out. So I feel like they may as well just do both.
You know, the day that game comes out, there's going to be some YouTuber that uploads a full playthrough, like day one.
Oh, immediately.
Yeah,
Oh, for
yeah.
sure. 100%. That's definitely happening. I think the big thing with the physical release ultimately comes down to all the steps in the process to getting the game into your local Best Buy, into your local EB Games or what have you. There's just a lot of hands that copy of the game has to pass between. And so, the second those discs start getting printed, a few of them are going to somehow go missing, or a truckload's going to disappear over here, or the Best Buy employee is going to sell it early or whatever. But there's just, I think when you go direct to consumer digitally, you're eliminating those steps, I guess. And so you are alleviating the potential risk of a leak there. There is still obviously the chance that it happens, but it is not nearly as many variables as it would be if you were also doing physical.
I think the other factor here to think about too is the potential of a GTA Online that may or may not be ready to go at launch. So they may not want to print discs and send that out when there's something that is needed for GTA Online. So maybe GTA Online comes out later, that releases, and then they do the physical copies.
I was wondering how they actually split this up with GTA, the main game, the online and all that. Like, is the copy of the game, let's say it's only digital, that we're buying in November, that's the $70 or $80 product, whatever it is, and it's just that. It's absolute bare bones, you get nothing with it. Or if you want, you can spend the $100, let's say, like the rumors of being that this is going to be a $100 game, and get the campaign, we'll call it, and the online whenever it's ready. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, I think that might actually be the direction that they go with this, is really piecemealing it out, but giving you kind of this, not even necessarily an ultimate version, because that makes it sound like it's going to come with some statue or whatever, but giving you hey, here's all like the regular price, we'll call it, lower end version. But if you want the real GTA experience, it's going to be $110 or $100.
Yeah. The other factor I was just thinking, and I don't know if this would happen because you don't really see this as much with, I guess regular games that come out, but maybe this will start a trend of this. What if a physical released because of the demand is so high for this game, it leads to scalping, and this is something that they want to like prevent at launch. We've already got rumors that like the game could be $100. What if scalpers get their hands on this game early and then try to scalp it for $200 or $300, and people are just so avid to play the game that they'll go to those avenues, and instead they're like, okay, we're gonna avoid all of that stuff and just make it digital so that we can avoid any of that kind of craziness that could potentially. I don't know if that's like possible necessarily with a game like this. We see that in like other spaces like Pokemon cards or like Labubus or whatever, but I don't know if that's a possibility at all.
It's the first time a Labubu has ever been mentioned on Controller Club, and I certainly hope it's the last.
Do you think then it'll impact like the actual retail stores, like EB Games stores
100%.
are already closing left and right,
Yeah.
and GameStops and all of those. So it's like, well, they're gonna lose a big chunk of revenue if they don't have physical copies to sell.
Yeah, there's a lot of stakeholders here that are depending on this anchor, this financial buoy that GTA 6 was potentially going to be. 100%. If I'm EV Games, if I'm Best Buy, if I'm whomever, and I see this report coming out, I'm sitting there shaking. I'm like, we can't sell enough Funko Pops to make up for this like massive loss.
Yeah, and some stores are already on the verge of removing physical copies. Like I know certain Best Buys have already like taken out physical games. And GameStops are shutting down all over.
I was in a GameStop yesterday, and it was 80% like merchandise with this tiny little like what used to just be the Funko Pop wall, and that was it, and the rest was games. Now that is the games, and it's like here's your T-shirts and manga and Magic cards and like physical goods. If you want games, you can do that online. You can buy those digitally. Let's jump from GTA over to Nintendo. We might be getting some more big announcements. Tom, Drew, take it away. The Direct could be coming. 2026, start with a bang.
A Nintendo Direct might be on the way, and a Pokemon Presents potentially. And yeah, these stories come here from Connor Maker at Eurogamer and Matthew Powers at Nintendo Wire. We'll start off with Connor here with Eurogamer saying, word on the internet is that Nintendo will be holding another reveals-based live stream next week, and it will be a partner showcase, no less. According to various sources, including Nate the Hate and Game Explain, the showcase will be focused on third-party studios publishing on Nintendo systems, with Nate the Hate going one step further, saying it will be hosted on the 5th of February, which at the time of recording is literally days away. So if this happens, we're pretty close to this thing. But that's not all, because Matthew Powers at Nintendo Wire reports that Pokemon Day is coming up on February 27th, and so is a Pokemon Presents, according to a new leak. Per the Brazilian Pokemon Masters app, and posted to the r/gaming leaks and rumors subreddit, a Pokemon Presents has been scheduled for February 27th at 11 a.m. Brasilia time, 6 a.m. PT. This leak is following reports that multiple games journalists have traveled to New York City this week for a Nintendo press preview of an undisclosed Pokemon game. Whether this is related to a potential reveal on February 27th remains to be seen. And the mystery game could also be for the upcoming Pokemon Cozy Life Sim, Pokemon Pokopia, which releases on March 5th. Considering that Pokemon Day is also February 27th, this date leak has a good chance of being accurate. A Pokemon Presents has routinely occurred in February to coincide with Pokemon Day. And yeah, it's also worth noting this is the 30th anniversary of Pokemon this year, so we're surely going to get something in this month, potentially. So it's only really a matter of time. But I think we'll start off with the Nintendo Direct. This is a partner presents or partner showcase, according to this rumor, so we're probably not going to see too many kind of first-party Nintendo stuff, where they have shown, like, in the past, some kind of Nintendo-related games at these things. Like, they had Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment the last time they did this, which was like a Koei Tecmo collaboration. But Hayes, we'll go to you first. Is there anything that you hope to be shown off for this Nintendo Direct? Like, publisher-wise, dev-wise, where's your head at with this?
Yeah, I think the big one that I very much think will be there is a new look at the Dusk Bloods, because that's supposed to come out this year. So if there is a partner direct, it makes sense that that's a big showing at it. I would like to see a new Warriors game. I think it could potentially be something Fire Emblem, but I also, for years, I've thought that they might be working on like a Xenoblade Warriors or something. Because I think that would be a perfect fit. So, and I do think that's one of like Nintendo's key partnerships. So I think that could be there. Square Enix will be there in some capacity whether it's just to show off like the Adventures of Elliot, which I don't think we have like a firm release date for. So I could see that being there on top of some kind of announcement from them. I don't know if that would be a new game or it could just be like a release window for Rebirth on Switch 2. So I think those things would be there. I think Sega could potentially be there. This is really their like big moment to kind of like give an idea of what the lineup for this year looks like, because we don't really have a firm idea of that at the moment. We have Mario Tennis, we have Pokemon Pokopia, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and then
Yoshi.
That's the other
Rhythm
game.
Heaven.
Yeah.
Fire Emblem?
And Tomodachi. Yeah.
Tomodachi
And Fire Emblem. But we don't have a good idea of like third-party port kind of thing. So I think this would be a pretty good big show to show off ports. I think there would be a couple new announcements, something like the Duskbloods, but then like it's really going to be a big focus of like dozens of games getting ports to Switch 2. I think that would really be the focus here.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't think we're going to see Final Fantasy VII Remake 3 here. Oh, no. maybe we do. Maybe we do see that here. I think they could show that off, potentially. But yeah, it does feel like it's going to be a lot of ports, a lot of, like you said, well, I guess Duskbloods is a new game, but I know we haven't seen the Elden Ring port in a long time. Could that potentially be shown here again? That was obviously in a pretty rough shape when we played it at PAX West last year. But maybe they've worked out the kinks and that will get shown off again in a better form. But Klein, I'll go over to you. Is there anything you're kind of itching to see at this Direct if it happens?
I've been wondering if this is where Xbox does their thing with Nintendo. We haven't heard they've been bringing PlayStation games bringing their games to PlayStation to great success over the last year or so. I was wondering, with the Switch 2 out now and a bit more powerful console out there on the market from Nintendo, if they could finally come out and say, hey, guess what? Indiana Jones, Forza. I think Forza would do quite well on a Nintendo Switch. Maybe even something like the Halo remake that's coming out later this year. I just think we see some sort of presence from Xbox, and I have nothing to base this on, but I wonder if we see something Castlevania. I know we've gotten a bunch of the collections over the last little while. Nintendo did the Advanced Collection, or Nintendo showcased the Advanced Collection and the DS Collection, I guess Dominus Collection, a few years ago. And Konami's kind of more back in the gaming space. They did the Metal Gear Solid remake last year. I'm just wondering if we see something new Castlevania from Konami, and I wonder if Nintendo, a direct like this would be the place to do it. I don't know what that looks like. I would love for Konami to like partner with, I don't know, somebody like the Blasphemous team or someone like that to make a new 2D Castlevania. That might be pie in the sky, but I feel like it's only a matter of time before we see that franchise again, and why not now?
Yeah, I mean, we do get some like Castlevania hasn't gone away completely in terms of like that. We haven't got a new game in a long time, but we have like collaborations with like Vampire Survivors, for example. We've got like the various anime Netflix shows that we've had over the past couple of years. So I don't think that's too far-fetched, especially because Konami is trying to revitalize a lot of its franchises in recent years, like Metal Gear, and instead of making like pachinko games or pachinko machines like they've been doing for the past many years up to this point. But so I think that's not too far-fetched. But Lauren, is there anything that you're hoping to see here? Silksong DLC, maybe. I know that was a big prediction that was on the table, but anything like that or anything else?
Yeah, you took it out of my mouth. I'm gonna start the cycle. It's Hollow Knight time.
Okay.
They teased it last year. We don't know if this is going to be another Silksong situation where it is just 7 years till there's a new game, but why not? I'm going to start guessing it for every showcase that we have.
I think it could happen. Like, I think it'd be cool to show it off, maybe shadow drop it, and that will get a lot of people excited. I think it's got a good shot of happening, even though I did bet against that on my Fantasy Critic, and that would screw me over a lot. But anyway, we'll move on to the Pokemon Presents. Like I said, this is the 30th anniversary this year, so it's a big year for Pokemon. We've got Pokopia coming, like very soon, which is probably what this press preview event that the report kind of talks about. We also have Pokemon Champions, which is like the kind of battle simulator game, which is what the competitive side of Pokemon is probably going to be shifting to. So it could be for that as well. I'm sure we're probably going to see that. But Hayes, I'm not sure if you're a Pokemon guy or not, but
I
is
am,
there
yeah.
anything you? Okay, cool. So is there something you'd want to see them showcase here, other than the 15th update with Pokemon Sleep potentially?
I think, I think all signs point to the 10th gen, like at least an announcement. Maybe not a date, but an announcement. Just because we had that back when ZA came out, there was that huge leak that gave a ton of information. And Gen 10 potentially being like tides and gales, I think it was. And with the anniversary and Switch 2 in its second year, I just think like this is the moment for Gen 10, right? Like it just is. So if it's not announced here, I don't know when you would announce it.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know that it's going to be like a big blowout of information or reveal. I think it's just very basic Gen 10. Here's the names, here's the starters, and wait for more info. So I think that's definitely the thing that's going to happen on top of what I would like to see. In terms of other than that, I can't really think of anything. I would love, my dream, which I don't think will ever happen, is to get another Pokemon Coliseum. I really love those games.
Speaking my language, let's go.
And I would love to see and I think the Legends games have kind of fit that area a little bit, where they're these spin-offs that do things a little different, have different mechanics. And I would love to see a new Coliseum game in the vein of the Legends games. But I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately.
They're never going back to moody, broody Pokemon again, Hayes. It's never edgy Pokemon is gone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It would be so cool, though. I mean, we got Dark Lugia. We got to get Dark Ho-Oh at some point. And maybe I'll revisit it with another Legends game at some point. But no, I think you're right on the money in terms of Gen 10. I think we're definitely going to see it here. My big prediction, I was looking back at like past Pokemon Presents, and the 2022 one, which is the one that happened before Scarlet and Violet came out, was basically just a short snippet of footage of the world of the game, and then like some of the gameplay, and then the starters, and then they had like this vague release window, which was late 2022. I think we're probably going to see the exact same thing here, where like we'll see like Hayes, you talking about like tides and gales or whatever they're calling it this game. We'll probably see some of the sea and sky exploration. We'll see like a reveal of what the starters look like, and we'll debate which one's the best one and the cutest one, and then we'll probably get a late 2026 release window. That's my big prediction for Gen 10. I don't think that's like a too far-fetched thing to see from this, but yeah, I think that's probably likely. Klein, is there something else you want to see, or Gen 10? Like, is there anything you want to see from that?
What
reveal?
I want to see, let me either play or buy Red, Blue, Yellow, or any classic Pokemon for that matter. Red, Blue, Yellow, Silver, Gold, Crystal, any of them. Put them on Nintendo Online. I'll buy them piecemeal even if you really want to do that. But the fact that we simply cannot play these games on a Nintendo Switch console or Nintendo Switch 2 is kind of insane at this point. What I think we're going to get is when they announced the Switch 2 and I freaked out that they were bringing GameCube games to Nintendo Switch Online, they had a list of games, and one of those games is Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. I think maybe Coliseum as well was mentioned. I think we get one of those two as a like day of Pokemon Day drop on Nintendo Switch Online and that GameCube catalog. I think that just makes sense, and that'll be really cool because both of those games, as somebody who has been like getting into the GameCube game collecting thing over the last 6 months or so, those two games are really hard to find at a decent price. Like, they are very, very expensive. Same thing with the Fire Emblem game that just came to Nintendo Switch Online. So the fact that they will be able to just like make these things available to people is awesome for people like me who want to experience those games again. So I think we get Gale of Darkness or Coliseum on Switch Online. I would love Red, Blue, or Yellow. I don't think we're going to get those. Maybe another Gen 1 remake? I don't know. I'm going to keep predicting the HD 2D Gen 1 remake until it eventually happens, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. So
that would be sick. Like if they did that, I mean, I don't see why, because I think we talked about this before, but it does feel like they leave money on the table with some of these like ideas that just seem to like they just kind of make sense, but they never
I
seem
don't
to
know if
want to
it
do
matters
them.
though. Like you go and look at this is the biggest entertainment brand in the entire world, dollar wise.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't they don't care. Like it doesn't matter. They can put out whatever they want. It doesn't have to like sometimes it barely runs and it still makes millions and millions of
Yeah.
dollars. And we're sitting here going like, wait, this studio is now making this Beast of Reincarnation game that looks incredible and just graphically is it's playing a different game than Pokemon is. And it's frustrating, but we continue to
It
buy
is.
it because we love those dumb little monsters.
We do. And yeah, I mean, like, if they're making this much money, like, I'd love for them. My dream thing, if they ever showed something, like, new, would be a new Mystery Dungeon game. They brought Red Rescue Team to Switch Online, I think 2 years ago-ish. I'd love for the other Blue Rescue Team to come Switch Online.
When's
That's
the
DS
last
one.
time we got a Mystery Dungeon game? Like, have we
We got a
gotten one?
remake.
Oh,
We got a
okay.
remake
Yeah, on
of
Switch,
Blue
I
and
think,
Red.
right?
Yeah.
I was thinking, I'm like, I've seen a Mystery Dungeon logo on a Switch box. I was just trying to remember how or why.
Yeah, and I've from all accounts I've heard that one is pretty good. I'm a bit hit and miss with the art style of that game. I like the pixel art of those original ones, but I've heard it's pretty good. I just want them to do. I'd love them to do a new one. I think it'd be really cool, or even remake like Explorers of Sky, which is my favorite of the series. I think that'd be sick. But
Bring back
Lauren-
Hey You Pikachu. Let me yell into my Switch and talk to the electric noise.
Yeah, dude, bring back the peripheral for that. That'd be sick. But yeah, Lauren, anything that we haven't touched on, or if anything you want to touch on that we discussed, do you want to see this Pokemon Presents?
Well, I'll start by saying it's not going to be as good as last year's, where Tom and I were in London together and eating those amazing pork sandwiches at the market,
True.
watching it on your phone.
That was crazy.
So sadly, that won't be happening this year. But
No.
in terms of things to see, I think there'll be a large portion of this dedicated to Pokemon Pokopia, because that is like releasing supposedly a week later. And this will be their last chance to really push that. So as someone who's genuinely interested in that game, I'm looking forward to seeing that portion. And then, yeah, I think there is probably going to be that Gen 10 tease, like everyone has suggested. And probably some kind of useless Pokemon app. Another one.
I know.
Yeah.
Tradition.
They're gonna help you diet.
Maybe.
Oh,
Pokemon Fitness.
Yeah.
The other thing
they
I
have-
remembered is we still need a date for Pokemon Champions. I keep forgetting that's a thing.
Yeah, that's still on the cards. I think, like, well, so the Europe internationals are happening in 2 weeks because I'm going to that. But that's probably the Champions is probably gonna replace the Scarlet and Violet block at some point. So it's gonna happen eventually. I mean, Worlds is later in the year, I think around August. So I'd have to imagine that they want to release Champions before then to give like the VGC competitive side of the fandom enough time to get ready for Worlds. So I could see them potentially getting a date here, because we've seen glimpses of it. We know it's happening this year. It is just a case of when.
Could we get another Pokken? Remember the Pokemon Tekken crossover from early in Switch 1's life cycle? I
That
feel
would
like
be
that did
cool.
well enough. I mean, it's Pokemon and people like fighting games.
It's such a weird game.
It's a
Very weird game. If you really think about
Yeah.
it, like as somebody who's only recently gotten into Tekken, I'm like, this is bizarre that just this
Why did they do
game
that?
exists with Pokemon characters in it. The other thing I was thinking about is we heard a long time ago about Netflix pursuing a big budget live action Pokemon project of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's about time we hear more information about that. Like, if that's actually happening, we have Stranger Things is done now. Netflix is looking to fill a void. They obviously have things like Wednesday still and One Piece and the live action Airbender show to occupy those audiences. But like a live action Pokemon thing, I think could do wonders for them if it can look and feel and sound as good as a Netflix pitched high budget Pokemon show, I think could.
David Fincher and Aaron Sorkin are teaming up for the Netflix Pokemon series.
Sure. Creative team of the social network is taking up Pokemon.
It's gonna be crazy.
Pikachu 2 is finally happening.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. We've
that's
heard
another
about
Who
it
owns that?
so
Was that
long
Warner
ago.
Brothers?
Yeah, I think it's Warner Brothers.
There we go. Netflix is buying Warner Brothers. We're in.
They've
Yeah,
had
that's
some
gonna happen.
success with their Pokemon stuff too. Like Pokemon Concierge was quite good.
Yeah.
I love Concierge. It's so good.
Mhm.
And Netflix has become like the de facto home of
Of
the Pokemon
Pokemon,
anime
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
Well, they've got a Pokemon. It's like a Pikachu and Surfetched show. I think it's like a. It's
Oh
by
yeah, that's the Wallace and Gromit one.
yeah, the Aardman
Aardman,
show.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm sure we're gonna see some of that here. So I don't think it's too far fetched to see. I keep saying far fetched because far fetched is
Farfetch'd,
a
nice.
Pokemon. But I think it makes sense to see some more of the kind of media side of the franchise.
Well, that's the thing about Pokemon Day
eventually.
isn't just the games. Like it's
Yeah.
everything. We got a couple years ago that beautiful like master set of the original Pokemon card or trading card game that came out with like the really nice cards and the battlefield and
Mhm.
stuff like that. We get obviously Pokemon Sleep and all those apps and everything that they're doing outside of the game. So yeah, we'll probably get card news too. We'll get anime news. Half of it's going to probably be like us sitting there going, why are we live streaming this right now?
Exactly.
That guy's going to show up I forget his name, but he
Yeah.
always is there and he's always dressed to the nines. Like he's just the best look, very handsome fellow. I'm looking forward to it. I do like Pokemon Day. It is very early in the morning every time it happens, but I enjoy my time with it. Fine enough.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to do it for the news. Tom Drew, give us that outro.
It's the news we choose. Yeah.
And we jump on over to our deep dive conversation on the state of online gaming in 2026. If you haven't heard, over the last week, there's been plenty of talk about the world of online games. This largely stems from a new release, Highguard. It was the final announcement of the 2025 Game Awards. It is a new 3v3 online shooter from new studio Wildlight Entertainment, made up of veterans from the Titanfall and Apex Legends team. The game received universal positive press previews coming out. It was kind of a shadow drop. No one had really played it. Press came out, I think it was last week, like 2 weeks ago, to play it. They dropped their previews right as it launched, only for it to become the center of the quote-unquote discourse. It got picked up. People were not happy. They haven't been happy about this thing really since it debuted back at the Game Awards. As for one reason or another, gamers kind of put the game like under the microscope, largely because of its placement at the Game Awards and that we didn't really hear anything. And a lot of people sort of kind of declared it dead on arrival. So we'll talk about Highguard later because Tom and I have been playing it. But I want to kind of get into the world of online gaming as we see it in 2026. It feels like it's a very, very crowded landscape and a harder landscape than ever to launch something to success, and people kind of have their anchor games. So I want to kind of get our general feelings, our thoughts, our takes on the online gaming space to start. Hayes, how do you feel about the world of online games as we sit here in February 2026 right now? Is it still a like abundant place full of experimentation, or has it kind of solidified into what it's going to be for the next little while?
I think it has mostly solidified, unfortunately, because of extenuating factors as well. Higher competition, games are more expensive to make, not to mention the layoffs in the industry and all of these different factors. Like, it's so risky to make a big budget video game right now. And these big tentpole multiplayer titles like Fortnite, Call of Duty, and Minecraft have really just kind of like dominated the space, that I think even the games that do something different, that experiment and have potential, I don't think they get the time they need to really grow into something what they could be. You look at like the one I think of is like Exoprimal, Capcom's like dinosaur shooter, which had a lot of really good ideas and I personally really loved, but it definitely needed the time to kind of get its legs under it and experiment with new content and have post-launch stuff, and it just didn't get that time because people moved on to something else. And I think that's sadly the way things go these days. You see a couple different ones like Arc Raiders and Marvel Rivals carve out a niche for themselves. But it feels like you either have to have one of two things. You have to have some kind of recognizable IP to attach to it, like Marvel Rivals, which is a good game. I love Marvel Rivals personally, but I don't know that Marvel Rivals would have found the success it did if it was not Marvel. Or you have Arc Raiders, which is just such a different vibe of game that it finds a completely new niche. People play Arc Raiders because of what it is, because it's that kind of very cooperative experience versus a versus kind of experience. So I just think we're gonna see less and less multiplayer titles find success, and because of that, it's gonna have a knockdown effect where you see less studios taking the chances on a multiplayer title, and eventually it'll just whittle down until you really only have a few things breaking through here or there. And that could change someday in the future, but I think at least for the next 5-6 years, I think we're kind of locked into what the big multiplayer titles are going to be. GTA Online notwithstanding, of course, if we get that.
Yeah, I think that we've kind of moved away from this world in which online was part of a game. It was the thing that you think of, I don't know, Call of Duty, even Modern Warfare 2 or Halo 3, where the big online titles were modes in these other games, and people sort of jumped from thing to thing, even if it was just jumping from the next Call of Duty to the next Call of Duty to the next Call of Duty to now it's this forever game thing that people are chasing. It is no longer, hey, Sony wants to develop this game. It's going to have a multiplayer mode in it. We're going to put it out. It's going to last a year, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. It's no, Sony's going to develop, put millions and millions and millions of dollars into something, and they're going to put it out there with the goal of it being a game that lasts for the next 10 years, lasts for the next 15 years, maybe even. And that is if you can see where the thinking comes from. If you're internally at a studio, it's like, hey, like, why can't we be the next Fortnite? Why can't we? But then when you have all that investment, if it does fail, that's a lot of money being put down the drain. That could be maybe five or six other smaller games instead of just putting all the investment into one bucket. For reference, I wrote down this stat that people are playing more older games than ever. They're playing the same things over and over and over again. In 2025, for the first year ever, the top 5 most played games were exactly the same as they were in 2024. It was Fortnite, Call of Duty, GTA 5, Roblox, and Minecraft in that order, which is wild. Like that means these newer things aren't breaking in. They aren't getting to those most played kind of, they're not climbing the ranks like they may have once done, because there are people who all they do is they play Fortnite. That is what their PlayStation does. And so it'll be interesting to see, especially as we get moving slowly into whatever this next generation could be. Do people even make the jump? Because they're like, hey, like, I'm happy. I don't care about Wolverine 2 or whatever's coming out on the PlayStation 6. I have my PS5. It plays Fortnite, and that's all I need. Tom, what do you think about this? As somebody yourself who I know is very invested in quite a few online games, do you think that this space is as dynamic as it could be?
Yeah, well, going to a point that you were talking about in terms of like, studio executives for like, I'd say in the past like couple of years, we're really banking on like making, especially Sony. Like Sony's the big one, I'd say, like investing in new multiplayer experiences, because they just seemed like a golden goose. Like this idea of like a forever game with battle passes that can kind of basically extract people's money for as long as possible. It just seems like such a financial kind of uh like a thing that's like worth investing in. But as it turns out, it's a lot harder to actually make that happen. And I'm always like surprised now. I think the thing for me is like I am just surprised like what is kind of breaking through and what doesn't. Because there is some correlation with certain things of like what is able to um appeal to the masses, I suppose. But then there are like other factors that I'm like, but then this thing did this thing, but then this thing did this different thing, and it still succeeded. So it is interesting to see what captures people's attention. And yeah, I think it is sort of it's a shame in a way that like we do just have like I mean, a lot of these games, like Minecraft, for example, I love Minecraft. Minecraft's like an incredible game, so it's great to, this small little indie game from like that was in alpha and beta for so long is still sustaining to this day. Is kind of like a really cool thing to see. But it does kind of the innovator in me is kind of like, I wish like more unique like experiences were able to break through, and there are some we're gonna talk about. But it does it just makes me a bit kind of sad that I guess people just aren't willing to make that jump and try that new thing. They're very much like, no, I like my one type of online multiplayer experience, and that's sort of it. So hopefully maybe that can change going forward. I don't know if it will, but maybe we could change some minds as we talk through this conversation piece here.
Lauren, what do you think?
Well, I think to jump off Tom's point, like it is true that all these studios looked at this great idea of having a forever game. The issue is that the forever games are still there. Like, if they had just put out Minecraft and stopped, then yeah, of course, something would be there to take Minecraft's place. But the fact that Minecraft, Fortnite, Apex are still producing content actively with new seasons, new collaborations, like they're still, it's like basically, if you look at it, like they're like releasing new games all the time and people are already invested in those. So if one of those had fallen away and left a void, it would make sense. But right now, it's like people, they have their thing, they like it, they're getting new content from it. There's nowhere to break in. Like, why would people go and take a risk on something else? So I think, yeah, I think if one of these giants kind of falls over, it would make sense for another game to come and take its place. But in the way things are going now, people like their comforts. They like what they know. And that's just kind of the state of things right now.
Yeah, to get into some of the, as Hayes, you mentioned, some of the kind of recent successes, there have been some games that have managed to break through, like Arc Raiders. I think that was one of the biggest stories last year, that this fairly small game that I'd heard about very, very tangentially throughout the year, people were mentioning it, but I didn't expect it to be as big as this. It outsold Battlefield 6. Like, it was the big multiplayer seller of the fall. You also have games like Marvel Rivals, which again is connected to Marvel, so you're getting that IP recognition there. The whole friend slop thing, which has taken over the last little while, and it seems that those games aren't in the same conversation as some of these others, simply because those, like Peak and RV There Yet and all these online multiplayer games, it seems like the people that play those games are more open to new experiences, and they're always just kind of jumping from one to the next, and they're buoying this thing and bringing it way up to the top of the Steam sales charts, and then moving on to the next thing after a while. I do think that Peak has had some staying power, which I think is very cool. And then, of course, Helldivers, which was one of the best stories of a couple of years ago, where this team that was working on this sequel forever and ever and ever comes out, and it was a massive viral hit. Then on the other side of things, you have recent failures like Concord, a huge swing and a miss from Sony. They were going to blend the storytelling of a Naughty Dog style adventure with online multiplayer and these new characters, and it lasted 2 weeks. I think it was like 11 days. Yeah. And now it's a collector's item, and I see people on eBay trying to sell boxed copies of that game for crazy amounts of money, because it's literally it's a museum piece at this point. Then you have something like FBC Firebreak, which I don't know what sort of staying power that was going to have. I might even throw on in the failure side of things, as somebody who adores this game, Skate, another game that just like has kind of came and went, and maybe they'll win people back, but if it doesn't get that initial first impression and doesn't hook the audiences right there and then, it's like it never even happened. And then, of course, Highguard is a big question mark. We don't know where that's going to land. From what I've played, I won't give away too much of my impressions, but like, I enjoy it, but I don't know if it's going to have the staying power of something like Fortnite or Apex. Now, from these examples, and maybe other examples you guys can think of, what do you think that these games, to succeed or fail, are doing right or wrong? And are there any kind of major takeaways that if I'm a developer sitting at home working on one of these games, that I can like look at and go, okay, maybe this is a path towards success? Or is it completely random? Are there too many variables for us to even think about? Lauren?
I think looking at some of these, like I feel like there's two maybe major standouts in the successes. One is IP, of course. And I think actually, even going into what I was saying before, like Marvel Rivals kind of filled the Overwatch gap because Overwatch 2 came out, was a failure. So Marvel Rivals came in, it had the power of Marvel characters. People love that. There was kind of a gap in, I guess, superhero games at the time too. Or it would also come off Spider-Man and people love that. So it's still like Marvel still having a moment in general. So I think that really helped it. And they obviously nailed the gameplay and all of those sort of combinations. So that helps. And then also Helldivers, while it was Helldivers 2, so it was a sequel, people knew the original Helldivers. There was some nostalgia to that, but I think that was another instance of, at least for me, something that I love in online games like this. Like I don't play them very often, but I kind of love getting to be silly. Like let's not take things too seriously. Like if I'm less inclined to go into something like Call of Duty where everyone's there to win and I'll spawn and die immediately and things like that. That's not fun to me. But like Helldivers, where it's like you're kind of, yeah, it's a fun experience. It's a stressful experience, but it's a fun experience to have. That makes me more inclined to do that. Even going back to Fall Guys a few years ago, like that was one of my favorites as well, and that was just so out of nowhere and was a huge success. I guess it was sort of COVID times as well, so that helped. But it's just silly, right? Like let's just have fun. Games are fun, but not everyone goes to multiplayer games for that, so I understand. Whereas in terms of things like we talked about Concord a lot on the show, why that failed, I think it was a risk on trying to do something new, particularly with new characters. If they had tried that model with Marvel Rivals, with the story and the chapters and the multiplayer segments, maybe it would have worked. But I just think that they had no brand power behind it. Yeah, so I think that's kind of a lot of the similarities I'm seeing. And I will also touch on, I think another way that things can be successful, and this there has been hits and misses with this, but is attaching like a GTA Online, or even, we might see eventually Ghost of Yote Legends, like we had Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Like I think those where people are already invested in the base game, and then you add a multiplayer element to it that's maybe like a DLC cost. I think that could work as well because people are familiar with the story, the world, the controls, and they just kind of want to experience it with other people. So I think those sorts of areas are where you can find success, but then at the same time, The Last of Us multiplayer fell over. So I don't know.
I think that something I want to touch on from what you just brought up is that you're talking about Helldivers. I would even put Arc Raiders in that similar conversation. There's a level of it's virality, I'll call it, that these games that, yes, there's this vertical of hyper competitive, very solid games like Fortnite, Call of Duty Warzone, Apex Legends. But then there's also this other segment of people, of capturing a moment and people being captured by that moment and that having enough staying power to cement something amongst these other giants. Helldivers completely did that. It got in the right people's hands. People saw these incredibly silly, stressful moments, wanted to jump in. Arc Raiders, I haven't played it yet. I'm thinking of jumping in finally over the next couple of weeks, but it is a machine for viral moments because it is all it's this weird social experiment, really, is what it is. You are running into people, you are having these proximity chat conversations. You don't know if this person is good or bad. Are they going to help me? Are they going to hurt me? And I think that doing that in an accessible way, because other games have done that before, but making it accessible in the way that Arc Raiders did really, really capitalized on something and made people want to jump in. But Hayes, I don't know if you have anything to say about that. Do you think that there's anything people can kind of take away from these successes and failures? And are we on anything here?
Yeah, I do think so. I think there is an element of randomness involved, but I think the other factor that's very important is messaging. And that kind of ties into these games that have found success are very focused on that player experience, that minute-to-minute player experience. Like Peak succeeded because the virality of it, like you said, it's very good about producing these memorable moments that are extremely shareable. And then you look at Marvel Rivals, and I think the other element of Marvel Rivals being successful, obviously you have the IP element. Like I said, you get people in the door with Marvel, but you still have to make a good game on top of that. And Marvel Rivals is a good game. And a big part of why that game found success was its early messaging. It's very player-forward messaging. I mean, they came out of the gate saying every character will be free forever. Like every single character we add to this game is going to be free. And that was, I think, the crucial difference with Marvel Rivals, especially because you looked at what Overwatch was doing at that time. You looked at what all the other hero shooters were doing at that time. And especially with something like an IP game like Marvel, you see that and you say, my favorite Marvel character might get added to this game in 8-10 months. And I'll come back to play when they add Gambit because I know I'm not going to have to pay for Gambit. So you have that element of it being a good game on top of the messaging being very important. And the same with Arc Raiders. I think the messaging was very good from the studio. And like, this is what makes our game unique with the extraction loop and the cooperation loop. And it's not just a shooter where you shoot other, you just are killing other people. And I think you look at another game where I think the messaging failed is like Splitgate 2. I think the messaging behind that game was outside of controversy that happened because the director, that didn't help, obviously.
We were all thinking it.
But I think the messaging of that game didn't do a very good job of showing you how Splitgate 2 was different from, for one, other shooters, and for two, Splitgate 1. It didn't do a good job of explaining how it was different from the first game. So I think that messaging, having a player-first message, focusing on that player experience is very important. Not like Concord came out of the gate and was very flashy and very like, here's what we want with the story. Here's what we have with like all these shooting mechanics, but it didn't do a good job of explaining what that player experience was. And I think that is crucial to any game that's going to find success in the multiplayer space right now.
I think that Concord specifically is such an interesting thing because so many people were turned off by it so quickly, they didn't even give the game a try. And
Yeah.
I'll stand by, like, that game was fun. Like, I enjoyed my brief time I had with Concord. Did it wow me to the point where I was going to give up everything else I was playing for the rest of the time? No, I don't think it did. But from what I played, I was like, this is really solid. The gameplay is quite a lot of fun. The characters were what they were. Maybe eventually I would have bought in and fell in love with them in the way that something like Guardians of the Galaxy did all those years ago on the big screen. But like, from what I played, I enjoyed my time with that game. It just, people are so ingrained in what they play and weren't willing to give it a shot. But Tom, anything here that you want to, anything else you want to say?
Yeah, well, just touching on a point that Hayes was talking about in terms of the messaging, I think that is like a major factor in terms of like, these games that people keep coming back to, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Minecraft, they're old games and they're games that people have invested their time, their money, their experiences with for years up to this point. So when a new one comes along, it really is about like, is this game worth investing my time and money into? And sort of what like Hayes was talking about with Marvel Rivals, like, yeah, every hero is going to be free for forever. The battle passes, a common complaint is that battle passes are limited time. With Marvel Rivals, you buy a battle pass, you have infinite amount of time to complete that battle pass, and that things like that are things that speak to players. I'm like, okay, like this is worth my time investing in because it's not as much of a hassle, I suppose. And even things like, Helldivers with like the kind of upgrade system in that game. And then on the flip side of that, like, yeah, you go to these games like Concord, or even I would say Highguard to an extent, potentially, where you look at the characters and off the bat, you're not as immediately invested in these characters as you would be in Marvel Rivals, because there's Marvel characters and you're invested in those already. But even like Overwatch, like the Overwatch character designs are like, I mean, Blizzard is just so good at that. So like that off the bat, people were just like, I want to play as these characters. I want to experience this world. Whereas these other games don't necessarily have that. So I think it is just like messaging that thing, whether it's a gameplay system, whether it's characters, whether it's visuals, whatever it is, it's communicating to the player base. Like, this is something that is not going to waste your time, because so many of these games, like Concord, lasted 2 weeks. Like, if you invested your time into Concord, you basically wasted it because like that game's gone now. So yeah, I think it really just comes down to that at the end of the day.
Looking ahead, we do have quite a few of these kind of games on the like slate, we've got Marathon, Fair Games, GTA 6 Online, whatever form that takes. I'm assuming that is coming. How do we feel about any of these and maybe others that you can think of? Do you think that any of these have the juice, like have what it takes to potentially, I'm not going to say dethrone Fortnite, but at least like live a life? Hayes?
Honestly, I hate to say this, but I think GTA Online's the only one that I feel like really has a chance. Even whatever it is, it's GTA and it's going to find success. I mean, GTA 5 Online still makes ungodly amounts of money every month. I wish they had given that level of like commitment to Red Dead 2 Online, because I think that really is like a really interesting online mode that did not get the support that it should. But I don't think, like, especially like Marathon, it just, I would love for that game to succeed, but I don't think it has the juice to, and I think it's been mired in far too much controversy. Fair Game's the same kind of thing. Like, I don't really even understand what that game is at the moment. And I think that, again, ties into that messaging thing where, like, any online game, like, I need a very clear idea of what playing this game is going to be like. So, like, if you're making a multiplayer game, don't show me a CG trailer. Like, if you announce that multiplayer game, you need to show me gameplay. The one I'm maybe a little more hopeful is Den of Wolves, the new one from the Payday studio.
Yeah,
Or I
especially
think
coming
it's a
off
new
of,
studio made by the Payday.
was it Payday
developers.
3? It's coming off of their last game, which was not received well at all. So like they have something to prove.
Yeah, because I think that for an online game to really find success, you really got to nail down into a niche. And so I think like Heist game is something that still, outside of like Payday 2, doesn't really have a definitive game at the moment. So I think there's room to come in, do a heist kind of experience, something a little different, and get a niche. Maybe you're not going to find overwhelming Fortnite success, but you're going to find enough success to stick around for years. So something like that in GTA Online are the only ones that I'm really hopeful for at the moment.
I'm wondering, the only thing about Marathon is, in a post Arc Raiders world, are more just regular everyday people willing to give it a chance simply because they can brand it as like a, hey, you liked that thing, you gave extraction shooters a try for the first time, now we have one from the creators of Halo. And like I think that could do something, but I, like you, am a little worried specifically about that game, just because it feels spoiled already, just with all the controversy. It feels like it has, even though I see trailers and I'm looking at those trailers, I'm like, this looks cool, but I can't help but get over everything that you've been selling to us over the last little while, and all the headlines and all of that. Lauren, do any of these stand out for you? Do you think that any of these, other than GTA, have the chance of success?
Well, I think it's like the point we keep coming back to. Like, I just don't see a gap in the market for any of these to succeed right now. Like, there's just too many other games that are working in this space that I just can't see people being ready to give those up, to give these a try, unless they come out with some really unique selling point that makes them have that virality or have something that the others don't. Yeah, I really just think GTA 6, like, that is a gap waiting to be filled. Like, yes, GTA Online right now still has hundreds of millions of players and things, but this will obviously be a reinvigoration of that because it'll be connected to the new game. So I just think that's going to be the big conversation when it happens.
And the thing about GTA 5 Online, we'll call it, is it was built, like, it's held together by hot glue and duct tape. Like, it was built on a backbone of an infrastructure that is 2 generations old at this point. Like, that game does not have like easily accessible lobbies still. Like, that's just like, you can, like, it is a pain to navigate GTA Online. Have I played hundreds of hours of it? Yeah, I have, because they just continue to throw in fun, unique things into there. I think they just released this past week, you can now be a firefighter and take on like firefighting missions in that world and go save cats out of trees and stuff like that. Like, there is still so much to do. I think GTA 6 Online could be huge simply because it's just going to be the same experience, but it's going to be easy to actually navigate that world and and access the fun of the online stuff. And so I think that GTA 6 could the sky's the limit for how big that online portion could be. But Tom, anything else?
Yeah, I think the key thing for me is that, like, going back to Marathon for a bit, like, I think that is a game that I'm pretty sure it doesn't have story content, right? Like, there's no story content attached to that, and that's a big thing that Bungie's known for. Like, I mean, Destiny 2 or Destiny and Destiny 2, like, a big component of those games is the story aspect of it, and the fact that Marathon doesn't have that, and they're charging however much they're going to charge for that game, I think has turned a lot of people off. It is interesting to me that like the big thing is like the free to play versus like how free to play versus paid experiences. Like, people are willing to give art creators or like Helldivers a shot and shell out some money up front because they are those unique experiences. But when it comes to like Marathon, the narrative that I see is like, this should have been free to play or that sort of thing. I mean, I think Destiny 2 is free to play at this point, right?
It is now, yeah.
Yeah. So it is interesting to me, like, the value proposition of like what people are willing to accept in terms of like, this should be a free to play game. Otherwise I'm not going to play it, or the games that are like offering enough where they will pass that threshold. But yeah, I mean, of these, GTA 6 is the standout. Even like the GTA like RP, like role playing side of it alone, like this game is gonna be so like immersive that like that.
Oh yeah,
side
if they
of-
bake any of that RP stuff into the game itself, because all of that is just like, that's community stuff. Like, that's all
Yeah,
modded
exactly.
in. If there is like RP tools built into GTA 6 Online, forget about it. Like, it's
crazy, man.
it's
It'll
gonna be
over.
huge.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll ask you guys on this topic, and we can get the TikTok camera ready. If we had to boil it down, can you still launch a purely online game in 2026 and expect it to succeed? Hayes Madsen, the floor is yours.
Yes, but I think there's I don't know, that's such a hard question to answer. I think yes, but you need to like have a really good plan. I think there's more room in the indie space to potentially launch a purely online game. One, because not that there's not risk involved with indie games, but there's lower risk comparatively to a big AAA game. And something like Peak, Peak was kind of like made as a game jam game, essentially. And it just kind of blew up. So I think there's, especially in the indie space that tends to be more experimental, I think doing something like that, you have more of a chance of that element of virality. So I think the answer is yes, with an asterisk next to it.
And it's going to be Kiln from Double Fine. Tom, do you think that you can launch a online game in 2026 and expect it to succeed?
I think so. I think like there is, even though it is an overcrowded market, I think there is still room for there are people who are craving new experiences, or even like other older experiences. Like, one thing that I didn't bring up in terms of like the IP of it all, like I think that is a massive factor in terms of like the game success or not. Like Marvel Rivals boosted that, but like Star Wars Battlefront 2, that's sort of like a random resurgence, I guess, after like Andor season 2. People just wanted to go to war in Star Wars, essentially. But that niche isn't filled with a new game right now. And it could be like that, maybe like a adjacent game like that could come along, or Battlefront 3. Maybe they tinker away with that, and that comes along down the line. But so I think if they find the right idea or they attach the right IP to it, there can be success. But yeah, there needs to be like good messaging and a good reason to like jump ship from one of the tent poles that a lot of players are attaching themselves to at this point.
Lauren?
Yeah, I think like anything in entertainment, you kind of need a crystal ball, because whatever is happening right now, you could be like, oh wow, Arc Raiders is doing really well. Let's make something similar. But by the time you actually get it done in 5 to 7 years, the trend will be over. So whatever they're developing now needs to kind of be ready for what we're going to be interested in a couple of years. So it's really, really tough. I don't envy them. I do think that it's possible. But I just think, like with anything that's viral, you can't really predict it. Although I was just thinking something we didn't mention in like upcoming releases. I feel like Peak, there is obviously an appetite for those games that are kind of a little bit more smaller scale, like Adventures with Friends. And a game we didn't talk about is like Big Walk. which is a new game from House, the Untitled Goose Game people. I was looking into this the other day because my friend and I were like looking for something to play together, and I was like, oh, what about that big walk game? What's going on with that? And it does seem to be capturing that peak kind of energy where it's like, let's go on an adventure with our friends. It's all proximity chat based, it's puzzle based. And I think that is still a niche as well, alongside these big, huge battle royale shooter games and things. There are those experiences that are like just doing random things with friends. And I think that really has potential to break through. So experiences like that, either whether it be in the indie space or whether it be a big IP that tries something new at the right time, I think I can see those things succeeding. But these ones that are just like random idea of shooting and characters with cool powers and throw them in an arena and let's see what happens just doesn't seem to be hitting the nail anymore.
I think what we need to do is bring back Knockout City, the dodgeball battle royale, because that game rocked. That game was so much fun, and it did not live the life that it deserved. That's going to segue perfectly over into our what we've been playing section. The whole thing that sparked this conversation, Highguard, is out right now, free to play, new shooter, 3v3 raid shooter, they're calling it. It's this very unique setup of teaming up against another group of people and building up a base and then going to take on this base. It's kind of a unique mix of, there's Counter-Strike elements in there with some battle royale, with team deathmatch, with League a little tiny bit. Tom, you've been playing it. I've been playing it. Has anyone else touched Highguard over the last week or so since it came out? No, I'm getting a shake of the head from Hayes, nothing from Lauren. Tom, what have you thought in your time of Highguard so far, and how long have you played?
Yeah, look, I mean, this game has been like lambasted like no other. I think ever since its reveal trailer at the Game Awards, and I think that's a lot of the reason why people are like just have such a, I don't know, like such vitriol for this game. But this game isn't that bad. Like, I think it's not terrible. I put maybe like a couple hours in. I didn't put in like, I think I put in maybe 3.5 hours into the game. I think there are some flaws, but I also do think it has some interesting ideas. Like you sort of talking about, like the raid structure of this game is unique, which I can, at the very like least, I can respect, because it is trying to go for something a little bit different. It is kind of, I guess you could like point to similarities like Valorant or CS. Like at the end of the day, it is kind of, I guess, planting bombs, which is very much in line with those games. But I think there are like some moments to be like fun moments to be had here. I like the mounts that you get. You can like pick your different mount, like a horse or a big panther sort of thing, and that allows a lot of maneuverability around the map. And it almost feels like these different phases of the match feel pretty dynamic in terms of like, first it's a find stuff and loot stuff, and then it's like a capture the flag esque kind of mode, and then it is this like basically CS kind of standoff that it all boils down to. And I think there are moments where I'm like, oh yeah, the gunplay feels really good because it's Apex devs working on this. So there is fun to be had here, but I do think it is kind of held back in the sense that like that match structure is, I think it is a unique and interesting, but there are aspects that I would definitely change. Like the map is like massive. I know they like added like this experimental 5v5 mode, which does kind of alleviate things from the kind of launch and makes things a little bit more chaotic. Whereas before it was very much like I'm kind of aimlessly running around and not really interacting with a lot of people, especially in that early kind of setup phase. And the setup phase is like another one of my issues is that like a lot of the time I'm just kind of aimlessly like going around trying to find chests, and sometimes I just don't find anything or find anything that useful, and then I go into the match without that good guns or good shields or anything, so I'm just kind of at a disadvantage from the get-go, whereas as if it was just like a buy system from the get-go of like, okay, I'm just going to buy the guns that I want to use and take into the match. I think that'd be a bit better. And also the aesthetic, I think, like, kind of what I was alluding to, I don't think the character designs are, like, that compelling. I think there are some fun abilities, like, there's one, I think her name's Scarlet is the one I was kind of gravitating towards. She has this, like, ability where she can, like, make walls, or she can, like, make holes in walls, basically. You can pass through walls and infiltrate, like, bases a lot easier, which was really cool. But, like, the characters themselves, like, the dialogue is pretty, like, stiff, and I just don't, on that side of it, I'm like, it's a free to play game, and I don't feel compelled to like, I don't know, buy a skin for one of these characters or like invest in that way. So I wonder like how the monetary structure like factors into that. But I think the game's fine. I think it will find a niche because it does fill a kind of niche. But I don't know how you feel about it, Klein, comparatively.
I think just like from a bird's eye view, this game was put in an impossible place. This ended the Game Awards, which news has come out about over the last couple of days that was not their choice. That Jeff came to them and said, "I've really liked what I've played of your game. I want to put it in." If this had been halfway through the show, 2/3 of the way through the show, there would be nowhere near the outcry that we have. But the fact that coming into the Game Awards, we were all sitting here going, Half-Life 3 is going to get announced. This is going to be crazy. This is going to be the biggest Game Awards of all time. And they ended on that. And I remember sitting there watching that trailer going, this looks cool. But I have no connection to these characters, to this world, to what this is. And I'm not immediately finding something to latch onto as a fan to go like, wow, like what a way to end the show. And so we get the game and I start playing it. I've probably put in about 6 or 7 hours into it. And I'm really enjoying my time with Highguard. I think that it is a unique enough take on the multiplayer shooter genre that I have really liked my time. I do have some issues. I think that, as you said, that kind of that supply collection, that resource collection phase of the game is inherently flawed with the size of the maps and the amount of people on the maps where it's only 3v3, where I wish I never feel like resources are scarce in that moment. When I happen upon things, I'm not fighting somebody to get them. I really wish we started to clash with the other team earlier. And it was like, hey, I found this helmet. I'm going towards this helmet. Oh, boom. The other team is here also going for that same chest. And we have a initial standoff there before the capture the flag element even starts. I think that there's a lot of the game where it is downtime and I'm just wandering aimlessly, looking around. I think that they could actually fix that by simply adding a 4th character to the mainline mode, just like 4v4 would just fill the map out a little bit more. And then maybe I would start crossing paths with these people. And I do find the games themselves can vary vastly in how long it takes to actually complete the objective. I've had games where it takes, so it's phases. You start, you collect everything, you go to get this shield breaking sword to get into the other people's base and blow up the base. And when you get that sword and you unlock the base, the base is a health bar and you have a set amount of time to deal as much damage as you can before it goes and starts all over again. And the next, say you took 60 of their 100 health off the base, it now starts with 40. And so you just do that over and over again until someone's base is at 0. There's some games that take one phase and it's less than 5 minutes and boom, you're in and out. There's other games that I've been in a game for like 35 minutes where we're just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And that to me is kind of a drawback because a lot of these experiences, a lot of these multiplayer experiences, really, unless it's like a battle royale where I could drop on the map, be the first person killed and hop back out and jump back in, when a lot of these team-based multiplayer experiences I get into, I kind of have some idea of how long I'm going to be spending. If I'm playing a game of League, it's going to be half an hour. If I'm playing a game of Call of Duty, it's going to be like 5 minutes. This is just so varied that there are some games that I find the longer ones in this game are very rewarding because there is that tug of war. There's that like, oh my gosh, we have to get to the base fast enough. And then the ones that are quick, you're just in and out so quickly that you kind of come back to the lobby and you're kind of sitting there going, what did I accomplish? Like, I don't really even know what happened. It happened so fast. And so I like it. I think that it was, as I said, put in an impossible position. I think it's sadly going to not resonate with people because it's tainted in a lot of people's minds because of the way it was announced. And then we didn't hear anything. And I think that's a bit of a bummer, but there is a good nut here. I just think that it could use like a few more little tweaks. If this had come out in like an early access, they said that, and then they're making little changes as they go, I would be more forgiving. But as this is the final product, I am kind of sitting here going, okay, like I think this could have used a couple more passes. Like it's like when you hand in a first draft of a script or whatever, it's like, I think this could have used another, just look over the design doc before we really got into it. Because right now there are these little things that feel so glaring when I'm playing.
Well, this is the thing. It's like, you know, the game as it is, like ranks mode isn't like unlocked at the moment, so it does feel like it does kind of feel like it's early access at this point. It doesn't feel like this is the full release. So it is strange to kind of that they had this kind of weird release rollout. But yeah, like going back to the point about the matches, like it, like some of the games like end so quickly and it just feels like a steamroll, whether it's like your team just completely demolishing the competition or you just completely get overwhelmed by the other team and the match is over before you can even like figure out what's going on. And I do think that's an inherent problem because like going back to like that investment thing again of like investing your time in these games, like the setup phase feels like you're essentially just in the lobby again, like waiting for the match to get going. I feel like a lot of the kind of fun about like multiplayer games is like you're just straight into the action. You're shooting people, you're collecting loot, and all this sort of stuff. But it does just feel like just kind of waiting around for the game to kind of happen, which is a bit of a shame. So yeah, I think this. I mean, I don't. I can't say with confidence like how long this game will last for, but like it does feel like because of how like unique this game is, I think this will find some level of audience. But I think the problem is the skill ceiling for me feels pretty like high, and I think the casual player isn't going to want to stick around for that. So it's going to be interesting to see how well people stick around for Highguard in the future.
If you don't have a group of people, if you're going into this as a solo player, you're almost guaranteed to lose if you're playing against a team that's actually communicating, because it is just so, if you're coordinated in any way, you will take out the other team very, very easily. Lauren, Hayes, do either of you have any interest in trying Highguard at all? Is there anything that you've seen, heard, that we've said that gets you excited by this idea at all?
I was planning on trying it at some point. I didn't jump in immediately because I was like, I don't have to play this game for work right now. So I'm going to play what I want to. So I would have played it if I had to do it for work. Since they added the 5v5 mode, I've been a little more tempted. I think I will download it at some point in the next couple weeks once I get through a couple things I'm doing. But it was the kind of thing where it came out and I was like, it looks interesting. It looks like I might dig it. Because I like, I do occasionally like different multiplayer shooters. I love Marvel Rivals. I tried Concord when it came out. So I tend to try things, but it didn't have enough where I was like, I have to try this today. It's like, I'll get to it when, and I think the feeling was I'll get to it when they've made some changes and made some updates. Like the 5v5. They added that and I was like, that sounds a little more tempting to me at this point. Mm-hmm. So it was the kind of game where I was like, it looks interesting, but I want to jump in when they've refined it, basically.
Yeah, I say all that, but coming off of my 5 to 7 hours with it, I am not like sitting here going, oh man, I can't wait to get into the next Highguard game. Like I really, after playing it for a while, I'm like, you know what? 2XKO just came to consoles and I'm really digging that and liking that. I'm playing through Hollow Knight Silksong right now and I can't stop thinking about the game. So I put it down and will maybe come back to it, but they're just like more engaging experiences for me right now in the landscape. But you kind of teed it up there, Hayes. What have you been playing now that you're kind of just like doing what you want to while you can?
The big thing I decided to go on a Resident Evil kick. Because I have a problem when I replay Resident Evil games. I can never like play just one. I'm like, I'm going to play RE2 Remake, and then I end up playing 3 and 4, and I can't play only one. So with Requiem coming out, I went back to 7 and Village, and I'm writing something on those games too. But it's been such a pleasure to go back to 7 and Village. I think those games are just phenomenal, and I think especially with Requiem coming out and having the remakes in context now, like you can kind of see the vision of where the series was going, where they wanted to go. And you go back to 7 and it's so like horror focused and tightly designed. And I think it was really smart to go to Village and kind of open things up more and sprinkle in some open world elements and these more action. And I just think those games have aged gracefully. Like they were good when they came out, but I think they feel better in retrospect now. And it feels like Requiem might kind of be the cap to kind of tie it all together. And that's what I'm really excited for Requiem because of that.
And you have something else written down here, Trials Beyond the Horizon.
Yes.
How's that gone?
Yeah, and if people don't know, I'm a huge Trails fan. The Trails series, this is this huge JRPG series. I think Horizon is I want to say the 13th game in the series. A continuous story, like it all ties together. And at this point, like Trails Beyond the Horizon comes out, and like if you have not played all 12 previous games, you will not understand what's going on at all. And it's really like the only series in video games doing that kind of thing. Like you have these big overarching series, but I guess the way I describe it is it's almost like the MCU of video games, where it has all these different entries that kind of compile and add up, and all these characters, and it's all about bringing these characters back and developing on these little pieces of lore. And it's like the MCU, like when it was good, when it led up to Infinity War and Endgame, like not the current phase, it's the good phase of the MCU. And I just think I respect that so much. Like I really respect the 13th game in a series going, you know what? Like you've played 12 games to get here. You're either in or you're not. And we're going to assume that you're in, and we're just going to go crazy with it and assume that you know all this stuff. So if you're into JRPGs, like turn-based JRPGs, really character heavy, party heavy kind of stuff, a lot of lore, like I cannot recommend the Trails games enough. It's probably the only video game series in existence where I would tell you that, like, yes, it's actually worth it to play through 13 100-hour RPGs. Like, I know that's a big task. I know that's asking a lot, but it actually does pay off.
Want the next 15 months of your life figured out? Here you go.
Yeah.
There's all the Trails games. I love that. I've actually been looking, really since coming off of Clair Obscur, I've been looking for just like a meaty RPG experience to get into. I don't know if the Trails games, it's a lot of game. Been hum and hawing about Dragon Quest 11, the next Dragon Quest Reimagined.
PSA to people now, like Trails in the Sky remake came out last year. It's a phenomenal remake of the first game in the series. That's really, there have been debates like where's the best place to start. Now that's the definitive answer. If you want to try Trails, go try the Trails in the Sky remake. It's gorgeous. It's snazzy. Like if you like it, then so go play that.
I love that. That's what we've been playing. Tom, before we get out of here, hop on over to the comment corner. We have some comments we want to shout out today.
Yeah, we just have a couple here. From like a wide variety of the stuff that we posted. So the first one here is from a reel from PAX West from last year, where we asked people what their dream Smash Brothers character would be. And Hat Max Top is Back says, we need Freddy Fazbear in Super Smash Bros. 6. At this point possible, to be honest. Like, given how big FNAF is, maybe we'll see it. Hayes, is there a dream Smash Brothers character that you'd love to see?
I have always wanted Isaac from Golden Sun.
Yes.
I know he was an assist trophy. I know.
Yeah.
But he's like playable Isaac from Golden Sun.
That's the dream.
Yeah,
him and Gino, maybe one day.
Yeah.
Maybe one day when they bring it back to basics. And then, we also got a comment here on our Beast of Reincarnation reaction. So at Shensu1366 says, there is zero reason that a Pokemon game can't look like this other than the fact that the Pokemon is the highest selling franchise ever, so they know it will sell, so they don't give an F-bomb. And yeah, probably, to be honest. I mean, we've kind of seen that, like, they put a set amount of budget into these games so that they will always be profitable. Maybe one day. Maybe if Beast of Reincarnation outsells a Pokemon game, maybe that could happen, but I don't know.
I think the big lesson is it's probably not Game Freak deciding.
This is
Pokemon games look like. So
there's also been a lot of talk over the last little bit that like a lot of outsourcing work was done on Beast of Reincarnation. That is almost none of it is there's a Game Freak team working on it, but it is not by any means all of Game Freak.
I'd believe that. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. And just two more comments here from our Fallout content, our Fallout Season 2 recaps that we've been doing. And at Bonnie Amoff 7033 says, on our most recent recap, says, was looking for a podcast discussing Fallout Season 2. Glad to have found one. Looking forward to watch the next part. So Thank you so much, Bonnie. And the last one here from our real and we talked about various predictions. And TJ mentioned loving Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and at Colin C Note 2120 says, I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. so much. Disappointed I didn't make the connection that he's essentially just playing a recurring role with Lucy swapped in for Daisy. And yeah, it was an interesting point that TJ brought up last episode that I was like, yeah, that is a weird, like Kyle MacLachlan's just doing that again and again. And maybe he'll do it for the rest of the time, but he makes it work. So
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is very good, and that show gets very weird.
Yeah, I only watched like the first, I think, 2 or 3 seasons, but like, didn't they go to like an alternate dimension eventually?
Yeah, and they go to space, and they're like on the space station, and then there's time travel. It goes like off the rails. At a certain point, they're just like, we're just gonna do our own thing, and it works.
This isn't canon anymore. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Our comment corner question of the week this week is, what online games, if any, are you still invested in? You can let us know those over on social media. Follow the show at Controller Club Pod on Instagram and Blue Sky, at Controller_Club on Twitter, and at Controller.Club on TikTok. You can also leave us a comment here on YouTube in the comments section below, or over on Spotify. They have a comment section over there as well. And wherever you're listening, please review us, rate us, subscribe. It really helps us out in our ongoing fight against the algorithm. Hayes, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to finally speak to you face to face. We've DM'd a few times. We go back and forth, and the Blue Sky replies all the time. But where can people find your work? Where can people keep up with all the great things that you're doing these days? Take it away.
Yeah. For now, the best place to find me is on Blue Sky at Soul Fleet, SOL Fleet. That's kind of where I do everything. I have a bi-weekly RPG newsletter that I run called An Evening at the Inn. Has original reporting and interviews and op-eds by me on top of just kind of like compiling RPG news. You can find that on my Blue Sky or on ghost.io. And those are kind of the 2 things I have going on right now. I got some freelance work going on that I might have on like Games Radar and GameSpot coming up. So hopefully more in the future.
We love that. What is the number 1 RPG that people should keep their eyes on for 2026?
Oh man, it's kind of cheating because it is an RPG, but it's also an action game. I would say Phantom Blade Zero.
Okay.
I took a big trip to China last year, where I went to the studio S Game, and I saw their whole motion capture process, and I played like 5 or 6 hours of it. And I really just think that's going to be one of the big standout games of this year. Really feels like Devil May Cry in all the ways that matter. The way I describe that game is you look at the trailers and you look at the gameplay and you're like, there's no way it feels as good as it looks. And it's one of the few games in my life I've ever demoed, and I'm like, it does feel as good as it looks. So I really hope the whole thing comes together. But what I've played of that, I'm very hot on it.
Awesome. Tom, where can people keep up with you, and what do you have going on in your life?
You can find me at Tom Drouart, Instagram, Blue Sky, basically everywhere on the internet. Not much to promote. I guess I could shout out my letterbox as well at Tomtastic. Been watching some films. Not very serious reviews up there, but you can see, if you want to see what I thought of Hamnet, you want to see what I thought of this weird Jane Austen adaptation that my flatmate forced me to watch last night, check out my letterbox, Tomtastic.
Lauren, what about you? What do you have coming down the hopper, and where can people find it?
You can follow me at lrouse19 on the socials, Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok. Not posting much these days, although I know that there's a Devil Wears Prada 2 trailer coming out tonight, so I'm sure I'll go and scream about that.
That's the biggest trailer of the year. It's happening.
It's the biggest movie of the year.
Oh, I'm so excited. Took that Avengers Doomsday spot because they knew, hey, you know what? Devil Wears Prada. It deserves the center stage. You can keep up with me everywhere. I'm at the Kleinfelt, TheKleinFelt. That's going to wrap up this episode of Controller Club. As always, thank you so much for listening and watching. Now, let's get gaming.